All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Sharon. I go by she, her pronouns, and I am the Financial Capacity and Trading Manager here at FreeFrom. Today, I'm joined by two of my colleagues, AK and Tanya Ventura, who are both going to be supporting me in the chat box as well as in the Q&A. So please, if you have any questions, use the Q&A. If you would like to engage with us and with each other, please use the chat box. We'll also have a poll. And then there's also live transcription and closed captioning. So please, if that is something that you're interested in, please feel free to use that feature. If you're unsure on how to use it, you can always privately message AK, and she is more than happy to help you with that. We have a few people still joining us, so I'm gonna give people just like another 30 seconds to join us, and then we'll get started. While we wait, I would love to hear where everyone's from. So maybe if you can put in the chat your name, your pronouns, if you feel comfortable sharing, and then where you're coming from, if you're coming from a state or if you want to put in your organization, would love to hear that from everyone. Cool. We have people from Oregon, Oklahoma, Los Angeles, Maryland. All righty. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining FreeFrom for our webinar today. Today we'll be talking about building financial security with survivors of intimate partner violence. And this webinar is based on a report that we released recently called Building Financial Security with in the Movement to End Intimate Partner Violence, a roadmap. So if you haven't checked out our report, please do so because a lot of this information is in that report, and there's a lot of other really great information in that report as well. So again, just to recap, please use the Q&A box for questions, use the chat box to engage with us and with each other. And then we'll also have a poll, so please engage with us in that way as well. So a couple and yes, this PowerPoint will be recorded and it will be shared after. So at FreeFrom, we love to do groundings because it's really important for us to think about what are we bringing into this space with us. So really, I encourage all of you to take a few breaths with me now. You can close your eyes if you want to. You can lay down or sit comfortably in a position that feels really good to you. And really just check in with yourself of how are you feeling? And then where in your body are you feeling it, right? So thinking about just doing a little body check for yourself, thinking from the head down. What are you bringing into this space with you? What are you leaving behind? And for this next hour, I really encourage everyone to think about just yourself, your breathing, and what you can take out of this webinar for yourselves and for your clients. One last collective breath. Okay. So a little bit of FreeFrom. FreeFrom is a 501c3. We are a Los Angeles-based nonprofit that works nationally on envisioning a world where survivors have sustaining income, savings, and credit with which to build wealth and resources to support individual, intergenerational, and community healing. And so in order to do that, what we do is we take a holistic approach using technology, peer-to-peer networks, training programs for shelters and other nonprofits, policy advocacy, social enterprise models, and cross-sector solutions. And this is all in our work to create income, savings, and credit for healing for everyone. And a little bit about FreeFrom's values, because we think this is really important for you to engage with us and for us to be really transparent about what our values are. We believe that GBV is an economic issue with economic causes and economic consequences. I'm going to repeat that. Gender-based violence is an economic issue with economic causes and economic consequences. It's not a women's issue, as GBV disproportionately affects trans and non-binary people. And to that end, the experiences of LGBTQ+ and BIPOC survivors are centered and inform our work and our workplace. We trust survivors at all costs because they are experts by experience. We believe that anyone can be a harm doer. And to that end, transformative justice supports survivors, harm doers, and communities in their healing. We believe that defunding the police and investing in non-carceral responses is crucial to creating long-term security for survivors and their families and communities. We know that living wage work and survivor-centered workplaces are essential to our movement's progress. We know that service providers are survivors, and we'll talk a little bit about this in a little bit. We know that economic justice is healing justice, and we know that sex work is work. And we share this with all of you so you have an understanding of who we are and what really informs the work that we do. Okay, so I mentioned our report, Prioritizing Financial Security, and AK has linked it in the chat box below. And I want to go over this report really briefly before we get into what does building financial security with survivors look like. So the goal of this report that we had was to know that the number one obstacle to safety for survivors is financial insecurity. And it follows then that the key to safety and long-term safety is financial security, right? And so the goal of this report was to illuminate what will enable staff working in the IPV movement to prioritize economic security, and from there provide a roadmap for what building financial work could look like. So we had a webinar on what the first part of that goal of what will enable staff working in the IPV movement to prioritize financial economic security. And if you're interested in that webinar, we can send you the link as well. And then this webinar specifically is on what does a roadmap for building financial security with survivors look like. So some key findings from the report, and again, the report is linked in the chat box below. What we found that, and this is all things that service providers who work in the movement have told us, is that staff working in the IPV movement are not able to support clients in building financial security as much as they would like to, but given the opportunity, they had very clear ideas of what more they could do and a willingness to do it. So that second part is really important in our webinar here today, because it's all about what the service providers tell us that we can do more of, that the movement should do more of. And the key obstacles to prioritizing financial security at an organizational level revolve around the lack of flexible funding. Funding specifically for financial work with clients and training staff is needed alongside with more unrestricted funding to foster greater innovation. The key obstacles to individual staff doing more financial work are a lack of training and financial education, and the need for greater financial security themselves. They feel ill-equipped to teach what they have not experienced. And prioritizing financial security in the movement requires meaningful investment in staff well-being. We must begin to acknowledge that many staff not only experience financial insecurity, but also identify as survivors. So in this webinar, we're going to be focusing much more on what are the things that service providers have told us is either happening in the IPV movement around financial security, and then what should we do more of. But if you're interested in any of the other key findings, please watch our previous webinar or reach out to Tanya or I, and we'll be more than happy to chat with you about that. All right, so who contributed to this roadmap, this report that we're referring to? What we found is that 52 staff members from 11 IPV organizations have shared their experiences and their recommendations. They range from ages 22 to 65, and the majority of them were female/femme at 93.5%, Latinx at 81.3%, and completed an associate's degree or higher at 86.7%. And then a little bit over half were direct service staff, a quarter were managers, 12% directors and associate directors, and then 6% were C-level executive staff, so like CEOs and executive directors. And what we found is that 1 in 2 staff members that we spoke to identify as survivors. So let's just kind of let that sink in. 1 in 2 staff members that we spoke to identify as survivors. 1 in 4 staff who identified as survivors still report still being in contact with their harm doer, and 1 in 5 staff members do not feel completely safe at home. So if you're interested in these stats, if you're interested in more of what does this look like for service providers, please reach out to Tanya or I either privately, or you can email us and we'll be more than happy to chat with you about that. So thinking about, and the point or the goal of this webinar specifically is to think about expanding and enhancing financial work with survivors. So thinking about all the parts of the really great innovations and recommendations that we heard from service providers about doing financial work with survivors. So before we get started with what I want to present that we heard from service providers, I want to ask all of you, and AK will put in the poll below, based on your experience, what is the top financial need of your clients? And then AK, if you can, there's that poll. So based on your experience, what is the top need of your clients? We have some answers coming in. I think building income, managing money. I'm gonna give folks a couple more seconds. So based on your experience, what is a top financial need of your clients? Okay, we have almost 70% who voted. Think a lot of building income, managing money, preparing credit. All right, get your last votes in because I'm going to end the poll. There we go. So what we see is it says 62% of people have said building income. 4% has said managing debt. Repairing credit was 15%. No one said building savings, which is really interesting. And then 19% said managing money / budgeting. Okay. And then our second question is thinking about how often do you support them with that need? So if you have said, it's budgeting, or it's managing money, or it's building income, how often do you support clients with that need? AK, could you launch the second poll? So if you said building money or building income, how often do you support clients? Most clients, no client. Ooh, mix. Some clients, no clients. Might be most clients. Okay. Every client I see a couple times. Okay, so it looks like the majority, I would say majority, most people have said 43% have said most clients, followed by 22% who said every client, a few clients. Very interesting data. Thank you all for participating. So what we heard from the people in our study, the 52 folks who are working in the IPV movement that we talked to. So we asked staff to rank the financial needs of their client from most important to least important. And what we found was most important staff members said building income is the most important, followed by budgeting, or what we call managing money, followed by managing debt, building savings, and then building / repairing credit score. So this was the result that we found from the 52 people that we talked to. And from there, we asked, what is the average number of clients assisted with these various types of questions? So the same question or a similar question that we asked you, we asked our staff members, and what they have said is on average, no clients were assisted with identity fraud, support for gig or contract work, as well as small business education, business planning. So a lot of like small business development, entrepreneurship, which is really helpful for building income for a lot of survivors who or undocumented survivors who don't have access to traditional employment. And then on average, a few clients were assisted with savings or building a savings plan, opening a checking or savings account. So a lot of the work working with banks, credit building, paying down debt, resume building, searching and applying for jobs. And what we found is that some clients, which is the highest that we saw in this study that we had, was financial literacy and budgeting. So those are the things that staff members were most often supporting clients with. And so we asked staff members, we know that building income is really important, that we have seen in this webinar, as well as staff have told us. And yet, why is it that clients are oftentimes not being supported with that, right? And so what we asked was, what would it take to prioritize client financial security with clients? And they said expanding funding, specifically targeted at financial security of clients, training and resources for staff on assisting clients with income building, debt management, credit repair, greater financial security for staff, which we know, if staff cannot feel what that they are financially secure, how can they support their clients in doing that? And then for more flexible funding. So these were the 4 things that staff have told us what it would take to prioritize financial security. And these are some quotes that we want to share with all of you in thinking about what does that look like. So the thing that I gravitated so much to is, in the first quote, it says, and so a lot of the times as an organization, we would definitely benefit from having just general operating expenses. If any of you have had experiences, thinking about what for yourself, what does it look like and what would be helpful for you in expanding and enhancing financial work, you can definitely share in the comments below. And so we can see if you guys agree or if you don't agree with this. Okay. So of the 5 things, the first thing that we saw, the most important thing that staff who work in the movement have identified as supporting clients build financial security is income building. So I would love to hear from all of you. What are the ways that you are currently supporting your clients in creating or increasing income? And what are the ways that you want to support your clients in creating or increasing your income? And if you can share that in the chat, that would be great. So what are the ways that you are currently supporting your clients and increase? And it's okay if you're not. You can share that as well if you feel comfortable. Not everyone is in a place where supporting clients create or increase income is a priority for them right now or doable for them right now. So I'm seeing supporting my client with learning how to grow or start a business as an additional revenue, which is great. Not requiring rental payments during 2 years, yes. Goal setting and purpose cultivation is a big one. I love that. Career development, interview skills. And so this all sounds like, what are you currently doing? So I would also love to learn, in your ideal world, how do you want to, right? So think big, think, really broadly. Don't limit yourself. From a place of abundance, what are the ways that you want to support your clients? Free cars, yes. I feel that. Or free car repairs, more career development. And I really encourage all of you to think about this question of what are the ways that you want to support your clients in creating and increasing income, even beyond this webinar, because this is a really important question in thinking about, in my ideal world. Oh, yes, with the magic wand, as Hannah says, what does that look like? Free childcare, yeah, that is and match savings accounts, IDAs, starting small businesses, and really think about this for yourself and for your organization of what are the ways that I want to increase, support my clients in creating and increasing income. Okay, keep thinking about this question, keep sharing, because this really is such a good exercise for all of us to think in abundance. Okay. So we asked the staff in our study, what is happening now with income building? Like, what is your organization doing now? And the biggest things that we heard were career planning, resume building, which I saw in the comments as well, searching for jobs, applying for jobs, and referring to external partners. We saw that one a lot. We refer them to external partners who do this specific thing. And what we asked them, what are the challenges in doing this work, right? And what we heard was clients not being able to work. So that may be a rule in the shelter or the organization that prevents clients from working. It may be that clients are undocumented and don't have quote unquote legal status to work. Lack of reliable transportation, which we saw in the comments about offering free cars or car repairs, lack of a job history, lack of childcare, and additional barriers for survivors who are undocumented. So it sounds like a lot of the things that we heard from our staff members who are in our study, we are hearing a lot in the chat as well. And so we asked them, okay, so the same question I presented to you, what would be in your ideal world, how do you want to support survivors in creating income? So they said allowing survivors to determine for themselves if it is safe for them to work. So not the shelter saying it's safe or not safe, but allowing survivors to determine for themselves. Providing clients with microloans to advance their professional skills, creating partnerships with local organizations to hire survivors, intensive job training, bringing back former participants to mentor current clients about building income, more tools to support clients interested in or starting and or growing a small business, and paid childcare for clients so that they can take the time to find a job and work. So I'm seeing all similar stuff from the chat box that we also heard from our staff members. And then we asked, and so that was for income building, right? So thinking about all of these 7 things, what does that look like? And I really encourage all of you to think about these 7 steps as well as the ideas that you brought on and thinking about how do we put a version of this in our workplace, and or if you have a version of this in your workplace, how do we make it more accessible to survivors? And then we also heard about cash and cash equivalents. And so what does that mean? And by cash and cash equivalents, we're talking about just flexible cash to survivors. It's no strings attached. So we asked our staff members, what is happening now at your organizations with cash and cash equivalents, right? And what we heard was gift card to grocery stores. That's what some organizations are doing. Support in terms of food in the forms of food, clothing, and toiletries. Some organizations and direct service staff are using rapid rehousing funds to cover clients' one-time costs, support accessing public benefits and or victims of crime funding, and support getting child support or spousal support through the courts. And the challenge that they identified was supporting clients who are undocumented and accessing cash. And in addition to, what we see as what this flexible funding look like for clients, our recommendation here at FreeFrom is to give flexible, no strings attached cash funding to survivors to cover a wide range of client needs. So I'm really curious for everyone who in this webinar of when you hear flexible, no strings attached cash funding, how do you feel about that? What are the things that are coming up for you? The questions, the thoughts, the emotions, and they would love to hear in the chat. So thinking about when I say, and when FreeFrom and when other organizations are saying, give flexible, no strings attached cash funding. I love that. Give survivors choice, expansive, low barrier, which is a big one. Yeah, so it's thinking a lot about autonomy and power and thinking about they decide for themselves, just like Julie said, what they can do with that money, right? So I love what Leah said. Clients know what to do with their money with financial coaching support. No strings attached will be transformational. And oftentimes, we put flexible, no strings attached cash funding, if it's possible, with some kind of stipulation, right? And so our recommendation is no stipulation. We don't ask them any questions about what was it. We don't ask them for proof. It's just thinking about the world in which we can live in with survivors when no strings attached flexible cash funding is provided. Yes, Hannah reinforces that they can trust themselves. Gives survivors choice. Yes. Okay. Autonomy. So we hear a lot from flexible, when we say flexible funding, and I didn't see in the chat, but it's okay if, whatever field comes up for you, that's okay. But what we hear a lot when we say flexible, no strings attached cash for survivors is money management, right? We hear that a lot thinking about, but budgeting, we need to support them on managing their money, and we need to teach them, and we need to, we hear a lot about this. And it's thinking about, what does it look like when we don't stipulate budgeting classes and we don't say they have to take these things, because survivors know for themselves what is going to be best for them when they have this cash. So with managing money, which is something that staff have told us they would like to support clients on, we asked them, what's happening now, right? What are you doing to support clients in managing their money? They said traditional budgeting strategies, so looking at forms and spreadsheets to help clients monitor their spending in different areas, and helping clients plan for their future expenses, particularly around housing. So we hear a lot about budgeting and then planning for the future around housing. And the challenge that they presented was difficulty discussing finances. And I want to address this because it really is so valid and so true for a lot of people. It's really, really hard to talk about money. It's really awkward sometimes, where we can get really uncomfortable, and it's thinking about, ooh, who am I that I can be asking someone about their money that is often private or seen as private or confidential, right? And so with all that challenges, which we will discuss in a little bit, we asked staff members, okay, then how do you want to support clients? What would be the best ways, right? What are the recommendations that you want to present? And what they have said is making the support more fun and goal-oriented instead of just filling out a form, worksheet, or spreadsheet. Celebrating clients' money management wins. Centering money management efforts around clients' current needs and circumstances, providing tools and information that are relatable, helping clients build confidence and feel positive about investing in their financial well-being. So what's happening now is just budgeting strategies and helping clients plan for the future. And these 5 steps are things that they would like to do. So of these 5 steps, I'd love to hear from you all. Which you could just say 1, 2, 3, or 5 in the chat. What do you feel like would be most helpful for your clients? Would it be 1, making support more fun and goal-oriented? 2, celebrating clients' money management wins? 3, centering money management efforts around clients' current needs? I see some 4s. Or 4, providing tools and information that are relatable? Or 5, helping clients build confidence and feel positive about investing in their well-being? Seeing a lot of 4s and 5s. 3, 4, 5, 2. Yeah, and so I would really encourage all of you, for those of you who are service providers and work with clients, these are all ways that you can incorporate this when you're working with clients. And for those of you who are feeling like, oh, I'm not a money expert, I don't talk about money with my clients, or we have a separate person at our agency that does that. Even something like celebrating clients win, even if you're not the person that manages or helps manage their money, these are things that you can support clients in their financial journey. And thinking about for yourselves, celebrating a money management win for you. If you do something that you're really proud of, or if you're thinking about tools and information that are relatable to you, these are all things that are applicable to all of us, right, as service providers. So I want to hear from all of you. What are the words, thoughts, or feelings associated with the word budget for you? So when we say budget, what does that feel like? Old school, out of touch, restrictive, a diet. Yeah. Amy, I totally agree with you. When I hear the word budget, a diet is the first thing that comes to my mind as well. Yeah, Sandra, that there may be money to work with, but that may not always be the case, most definitely. Cumbersome. Okay, Heather said when I was younger, I felt restricted, but now I see it as empowering, which is really, I love that. So something that we do at FreeFrom is when we work with organizations and they come to us a lot of times with, I want to help my clients with a budget and I want to help my clients, think about their budget and work on their budget. And for all of the reasons that you have said, which it feels, a diet feels restrictive, it's not a good follow through, even something as simple as changing the word, right? Changing the phrase that you work with survivors on, instead of saying, let's work on your budget. If you just even ask, like, is managing your money, is this something that you're interested in? That can be really, really helpful. Yes, budget can be a trigger word like control. When you think about the word budget, it's thinking about something that's restrictive, and oftentimes it can be indicative, or it can show, it can feel like economic abuse for clients, right? Economic abuse doesn't always happen just interpersonally. It can happen within organizations, it can happen within workplaces, it can happen within governments, right? So in order to be as stay as far away from economic control as possible, we want to start using words that may feel more comfortable for clients. So I love spending plan, Leah. You can use anything else that doesn't revolve around the word budget, so that clients don't feel like, even if you have the best intentions, it doesn't feel like a control over them. Especially for clients, what we know is that 99% of survivors experience economic abuse. And so anything that we can do to support clients, I would love that. Money machine, yes. If anyone that has any other words that they use, spending plan, money machine, please share in the chat so that other people can also use those as well. Okay. Oh. So what are some things that we see with something that the world calls a budget, that we can talk about spending plan or money machine? So we say make wealth and wellness meaningful for the clients, right? So by that, we mean we're not talking, when we say, wealth and wellness, and when we talk about what we traditionally know as a budget, people say, take out the $5 Starbucks. But something that I always ask is that $5 Starbucks really going to get that survivor to safety? Right? And even if that isn't, is that $5 Starbucks helping the survivor feel good about themselves? Is that their form of self-care? So thinking about, what does wealth and wellness mean for them? So for them, it's going to look completely different for what wealth and wellness means to you. So for me, wealth and wellness is not going to mean the same for what it means for Hannah or for Leah, right? Or for Mari. It's going to look completely different. And so we want to be respectful of that. And we want to ask clients, what does it mean for you? We want to ask about goals and what is their why. And I think I saw this in the chat a few minutes ago, but thinking about, what are they building income for? What are they saving money for? What are they managing their money for? Because if it's just because this organization told them to, if it's just so that they can get these services, it's not going to be helpful, and it can actually be more harmful. So we always want to ask the question, and trying to stay away from words like budgeting for all of the reasons that you all have mentioned, and prescriptive statements like you need to, right? If we start saying you need to do this and you need to do that, or stop doing this or stop spending money on this with clients, then that's not going to create a community or going to create an environment that is going to be helpful for the survivor. So all of these is asking questions with survivors, right? Because they are the experts. Asking them, what does wealth mean to you? What does wellness mean to you, right? What is your goal? Why do you want to manage your money? Why do you want to? And maybe they say, I don't want to do a budget with you. I don't want to do this, right? So we want to ask them, what is their why? And then trying to stay away from words like budgeting or anything that may be make them feel like that they had in a previous situation, or staying away from prescriptive statements like you need to do this or stop doing this. Okay. Any questions on this? If anyone has anything, an additional recommendation that they want to share, I would love to hear it in the chat as well as for us, but also for others as well. Okay, savings. We saw savings a lot come up in our study. I'm seeing it a lot come up previously. So what does that look like? So we asked, what is happening with savings at your organization? What's currently happening and what does that currently look like? And we heard that for some clients at some organizations, client savings is mandatory for clients. And we know that at some agencies, they hold their clients' money in a savings account and their organization acting as an unofficial bank. And what they have told us, the two recommendations that staff provided was supporting clients in building their savings through matching incentives and supporting clients in building their savings by returning program fees to clients at the end of their stay. So some organizations require clients to pay for services. And one of the recommendations was that we support them, we support the clients by giving that program fees back. And so I'd love to hear from you. What are some other ways that you can support clients in savings? And again, I want you to think in abundance. Don't think about, well, at my organization, this isn't going to work because of X, Y, and Z. In your ideal world, with your magic wand, I think that was Hannah, what does it look like? And how can you support your clients in savings? And these were the two recommendations that we heard. Savings is an activity, not an amount. Yep. And if you're not comfortable with savings yourself, if you're like, oh, I have a hard time saving, that's okay too, right? Maybe some of this can be helpful for you. Yeah, mandating or directing does not encourage resilience. It just reinforces that they can't be trusted. Celebrate even the smallest amount of effort, even putting extra change in a jar. Yeah, that adds up. Part of your self-care plan. Some things can be asking, clients why they want to save, right? So saving for the sake of saving is not that great. It's not, it's hard to do. But if it's saving for, I want to save for a vacation, I want to save for Christmas, I want to save for another holiday, automating is extremely useful. And then also thinking about, sometimes clients can't save, right? They don't have the income to live off of, let alone save something. And so it can be that not saving is part of the plan. Okay. Just like we heard in the chat, do not mandate savings, because I think it was Hannah that said it reinforces that they can't be trusted. And then pay survivors to open bank accounts to meet the minimum amount and or open safety deposit boxes at banks to store their cash and or important personal financial documents. Well, we heard a lot, and I know this happens across different organizations across the state or across the country, is that because, I actually don't know why, for some reason, organizations will hold the money for their clients so that it's, or because it's in a safe place. But what that happens is it often mimics some economic control, economic abuse behaviors that we see in interpersonal, where one person has the power because one person has the key, whether that's a manager or an organization. So they're holding on to that money for the client. And the client has to ask every time that they want to take this money out. And so if that manager's not there that reason, or if, maybe they're asking some questions where the manager thinks that they're helping because they're asking, why do you need to pull out that $200? Then it may make the survivor feel like they have to justify why they want to spend that money, right? What an alternative can be is to say, you know what? Our organization is going to pay you to have a safety deposit box at a bank so that you can go out and get that cash whenever you want, right? And so definitely, I mean, Julie in the chat saying reinforces that clients don't know how to manage their money. It's controlling and belittling. And it can be that, we definitely understand that, maybe, their home or the place that they're staying at may not be the safest to be carrying cash around. But if we can pay survivors, and I don't mean pay banks, I mean pay survivors to open safety deposit boxes or bank accounts that they have control over, then that eliminates the security concern as well as the economic concern. Yeah, is thinking about how do we, and with banks, they'll say you need a minimum $100 or $50. And for a lot of survivors, they don't have that. And that causes fees and that causes a lot of, additional economic repercussions. And so organization, if we're really thinking about how do we support survivors in managing money and saving their money, is thinking about we pay them to use the institutions that exist. Okay. Credit and debt management. We hear this a lot as well from organizations who are either supporting their clients with housing and or, well, a lot of the time with housing because we're thinking about credit and debt. So we asked staff members, what's happening now? What are you doing with clients right now to support them with credit and debt management? And we heard they are explaining what credit is, why is it important, what is it impacting, assisting clients with checking and understanding their credit reports, providing strategies for improving their credit score, referring clients to attorneys and experts to assist with fraud. So that's what's happening now with credit and debt management. And we asked staff members again, what is your recommendation then? What is the best way for you to do it? And they said, improve staff's own knowledge around credit and debt issues, including learning what solutions are available. So training staff and improving staff's own knowledge and helping clients find longer term solutions, help that can support them through the sometimes time consuming process of repaying credit, right? So thinking about improving staff's own abilities and knowledge as well as longer term support. And something that we always want to add with these things is to offer clients support with working on their credit as soon as possible, rather than when the client needs housing or something else comes up. So thinking about as soon as the client comes, how can we support them in their credit? Because, the staff members are right. It does often take a really long time to build back credit. So we want to support them as soon as they walk in or as soon as they ask. Right. So if they walk in and you're like, let's help you with your credit, and they're like, no, thank you. Obviously, we don't want to do that, but we want to offer that. We want to offer that service in addition to all of the other things that we're offering, and they can say yes or no. And then offer to help run and go over a credit report with clients for themselves and their children, if applicable, and address any errors or fraudulent activities. So thinking of, again, with the offering, we never say, let's run your credit report, because they may say no for a lot of reasons. There may be things on that credit report that they're not ready or want to address yet. And so we offer to run it. And oftentimes what we forget is running credit reports for their children, because, especially if kids have been in different placements, or if their social security number is vulnerable to different people, there may be fraudulent activity with their children. And then addressing any errors or fraudulent activities, if there are any, with the clients. Yeah, definitely, Alexandra. It does take a really long time to build. So it is good to start ASAP, and it's good to offer, right? all we do is offer, we never force it upon clients. And then additional support. So we asked staff members how to best provide financial services. So all of these things that we talked about, credit and debt management, money management, building income, how do we best provide these services? And what we heard was to start financial programming right away, tailoring programming to survivors' individual needs, offering services in clients' preferred languages to build trust and relationships. So if English is not their first language, trying as best as you can to go in the language that they prefer, having facilitators who are trauma-informed and versed in financial matters. And this can be a little bit difficult, right? Or it can feel difficult because oftentimes what organizations will do is say, I don't feel comfortable talking about money, so let me bring in, JP Morgan, who talks about money. And then JP Morgan comes and they're talking about retirement accounts and investments, and clients are like, what the heck are you talking about? Or even the people who think they're trauma-informed or trying to be trauma-informed, they say, you should just open a savings account. But what we saw in the chat definitely, and what we know is that even opening a bank account can be really stressful and can bring up a lot of different emotions. So having facilitators who are trauma-informed and versed in financial matters is, I always say clients are always going to feel more comfortable with you than they are with, an external person who comes in, doesn't know anything about them, doesn't know how to be trauma-informed. And so it's always thinking about how can I provide these services and what is the best way for the clients. So I would love to hear from you. What are the other ideas and innovations you have on how to best provide financial services to clients? These are the things that came up that the staff members have said, but what are the things that you have, ideas, innovations for best providing financial services? And again, think in my ideal world with my magic wand. Direct cash, trauma informed, most definitely. I like that. No policing on their spending. I like that phrase. Training for staff, most definitely. Okay. So some tips that we want to provide you for having finance related conversations. First, ground the space, right? Just like we did before this webinar, we want to ground the space because we don't know what the client is coming into this meeting with. And it's a really good opportunity for you to think about, what am I bringing into this space with the client? If this space is for the client to talk about, their credit or their, their ideal, income, you don't want to bring in any bad energy. And I say that you, including me, because sometimes I'm going from, meeting to meeting and meeting. So I'm feeling rushed. So I need to bring that space to ground the space for myself as well. Honor their decision to stop, start, and pause. So if they have said, you know what, I need to take a break, we need to honor that. If mid-meeting, like 5 minutes in, they're like, I don't want to do this anymore, we definitely need to honor that decision, because then if we say, no, we have to do this because this is the time and this is what we planned for, if we push them, then they may not come back. Ask the client what they want to focus on during the duration of the meeting. If they are unsure, you can provide them with a list of options. So instead of us saying, we're going to be talking about credit, or we're going to be talking about your budget or managing money, we want to ask them what they want to work on, because what we think is important may not be important to them, and what we think is not important may be really important to them. And if they're like, I don't really know what to talk about with my money, you can kind of go through a list. We can talk about building income. We can talk about starting a new business. We can talk about asking your boss for a raise. We can talk about your credit, whatever that looks like for them. Ask about their goals. We talked about this. We always want to ask about their goal and ask about their why. You want to listen, always listen. The client is the expert here. And I repeat that for everyone, the client is the expert here. Even if you're the one that has the financial knowledge, or oftentimes, most times as a service provider, we hold power. We always want to make sure that the client is the expert here and that the client knows they are the expert here. I hear this one a lot, and I want to share with all of you. It's okay to not know all the answers to their questions, and you don't need to quote unquote fix all the problems or questions. I hear that with service providers, they say, I'm really scared to ask about clients' needs because there's a lot of needs and I don't know how to fix it, and we just don't have the capacity. So I don't want to even go there. And it's okay not to know the answers to everything. You can say, you know what, I'm not sure, I can check on that and get back to you. Stay in abundance and away from scarcity. So asking about passion, strengths, and interests. So asking them not about what do you need, and what are all these needs, but what are you good at, right? A lot of small businesses, it always starts with their passion and their strength and their interest, obviously. So what are you good at? What are people asking you to do? What are you doing for free for your friends and your families right now? So those two things come really hand in hand. It's okay not to know all the answers to their questions. And we always want to try to stay in abundance and away from scarcity. And this is something that you can practice for yourself as well. If a client asks for support, be creative and operate from a place of abundance and creativity in your suggestions. And try not to feel limited about how things have always been done. So it may be that you're kind of thinking about, oh, we don't do that, or agency, or we've never done that before. But if you can come from a place of abundance and creativity, there may be things that you can do a version of that. Or you may be the person that, breaks this is the way we've always done it way. And then finally, we always want you to support you as service providers to honor any emotions that have come up for you during your meeting with the client, and to check in with yourself and someone that you trust. We know that 1 in 2 staff members are survivors themselves. We know that 99% of survivors experience economic harm. So you may be feeling things that are coming up for you that you didn't expect, or you don't recognize. And so with anything, we always want you to be supporting yourself as well. And anything that comes up for you, always feeling like you can check in with yourself and someone that you trust. Okay. So I'd love to hear from you. What is one action you can take this month, and one innovation you want to learn more about? So maybe this is an action in your workplace. Maybe this is an action with a client. Maybe this is an action for yourself. It can even just be like, I'm going to ground myself in my car every day before I get into work. It doesn't have to be finance related. What is one action you can take this month? And what is one idea or innovation you want to learn more about? And it can be an innovation or an idea that I spoke about, or it can be something that in the chat box that someone has said that you're really interested in. Susan, I'm seeing from you exploring a relationship with your local credit union. Thinking about, we'll have a Department of Financial Coaches of AFCPE. Continuing to collab with local bank. Oh, Heather, I love that. Grounding myself before meetings with clients. So what is one action you can take this? And if you don't want to share with the group, that's okay. It can be something that you put, but I really recommend that you mull over this question, write it down if you want to. So what is one action you can take this month? And what is one idea or innovation you want to learn more about? Because there was a lot of good information in the webinar, but there's also a ton of really good information in the chat box as well. Staying in the mindset of abundance and away from scarcity. Expanding client assistance support to include coverage of financial transactions and introducing savings account. Yes, love that. Okay, so continue to think about this question. If you want an accountability partner, you can just email your one action or your one idea or innovation to me or to Tanya. Okay, so questions and discussion. Does anyone have any questions? You can use the Q&A box. You can use the Q&A box. You can, or anything else lingering that you want to share with us or with the attendees here today? Okay, I don't see any questions or any lingering chats. Yes, definitely the chat has been so lively and so interactive. I loved it today. Thank you. Okay, so before we head out, I'd love everyone to do a grounding with me again. So in this grounding, I want you to think about all the feelings and thoughts and memories and innovations and ideas that came to you during this training, and really take this time to congratulate yourself on all of the chats and innovations that came up, because it was amazing. Write them down, draw them out. You can make a to-do list if you're like me. You can talk to somebody about them. So whatever is meaningful for you, give yourself the space to think about them. I want you to take a couple of deep breaths. Think through your last thoughts. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Such a pleasure chatting with all of you today in the chat. Thank you so much for participating and engaging with all of us. My email is drops. AK just dropped it in the chat box as well as on the screen. And Tanya, who is our director of service provider engagement education, her email is also dropped. So please engage with us. Please ask us any questions if you have any. And we are looking forward to the next webinar. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.